victims. I do have a problem. When something can define us, it's like we have a choice still, and that sounds really harsh, but actually I still believe in the most difficult challenge, you can push on. Sometimes you need to accept that things are just bad, and that's okay. If your husband or wife has just died and you want to have a day in bed, then do it. If you need to cry, cry. Because doing these things will then enable you to move forward. I'm fully aware that we're not going to be here forever. At some point, I'll be drawing my last breath. Some people think I'm morbid, but I'm the opposite. I think I'm truly living.
Hello, John.
Hi, Kirstie.
How are you?
Really good.
We're going to do this. We've been talking about this for such a long time. So this is quite exciting for me. Probably scary for you.
It's different for me. I'm not used to the one being doing the talking.
The way around. Yeah.
So,
okay.
But now looking forward to it.
What inspired you to start your campaign for bereavement education in schools, and why do you feel that it is so crucial for society?
So yeah, this is an interesting one. It's not a simple answer. It goes back to my childhood. It goes back to arranging and conducting funerals with families who have children, and seeing like now how people weren't getting children involved. And then I was thinking, well, that's what happened to me to an extent. And I've always said, and I say it publicly now, that I'm not a victim at all. I'm very grateful for the life I've had, but actually I can visualise and I have the tools and the answers in how to make things better. So that's why it's been done. And yeah, we're making profound steps forward. So it's going in the right direction. So
it's in my role as well. I've always thought school, families, we have a duty to prepare children and young people for adulthood.
Yeah.
And that's that one guarantee, isn't it, that they will come across this in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's how do we embed this into education that it's so natural, it's another subject matter, it's just, I'm going to do, or this is what we're going to do. We're giving young people tools to deal with something significant, but something that we know is going to happen. So okay, you've used this strength from your mom and everything that happened there, but you also must see good and bad examples working with all the families.
So going back then, so some schools in the UK are already doing this. It's important to state that. So I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's already happening in a small percent of schools in the UK. The results of the schools that are doing it, it's all really positive. Kids aren't leaving school running out screaming in trauma. But then, so for myself, when my mum died and we arranged the funeral, but I don't think at that time children's voices were really taken into consideration, which again, there's no bitterness here, it's just the facts. So it's kind of like, from what happened, I just at the time thought that was normal, but then growing up, I saw the result when we did get children involved. For a child, their mother or father, or their sister or brother really is their world for a young person. So isn't it obvious that we want to get them really involved in what's happening, or give them the choice to be involved? And
but now as a parent, you can see how scary that is as well. We talked about it, funny enough, only yesterday, that as a parent, you want to protect your child, and you think you're actually doing a good thing by shielding them from this, but actually what you're saying, having lived this traumatic event as a young person, that's not actually the best thing. Unfortunately,
the reality of life is when we protect children, it can cause more damage. Overprotection in all forms. It's not a healthy outcome. Unfortunately, life can be difficult. Life is difficult, but we need to prepare people, and actually taking ownership and getting involved in certain acts and in certain connection points, as I call it. It can have a massive healthy effect in the future. It might be hard today, but actually 5 years' time, 10 years' time, you're going to be in a more healthy, positive place. And I've seen it, and it works.
Well, we know with trauma-informed approach, and we know with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, anything that the child does in support at that time will help them into adulthood. So it's not a trigger when they're an adult because it wasn't dealt with. It's actually giving them the tools and the support to. It's never going to go away, which is like you were saying with your mom, but, you know, how you've used that feeling and emotion and what wasn't right to make right for others. So my question to you then is, how do you know that this is successful, all the work you're doing to get into education? What will that look like? All schools doing it?
Yeah, so it's important that it's mandatory,
Yep.
and that every school in the UK is doing this. And the reason why it needs to be mandatory is that every child at some point will become an adult, and every person will suffer a loss.
Yeah.
It's part of life. Chris Hoy this week, he's been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he's actually come out and said the same thing, that it's part of life, and it's really difficult.
And that was really moving as well, because he was so calm.
Yeah.
Very, as you say, matter of fact.
It's taking control of the situation.
Yeah.
But what I've been saying is, though, that actually teaching young people who don't go through a loss, they are equally as important for them to learn about it as the ones that do. The ones that do, and that's every 20 minutes in the UK, a child loses a parent, but that doesn't include aunties, uncles, siblings, grandparents,
close friends
and even
family.
pets.
Yeah.
But actually the ones that don't suffer a loss, firstly, they'll be able to have conversations with their friends who do suffer a loss, and actually both sides of that fence will grow up to be adults, and actually they'll be able to have conversations then with their friends who suffer a loss. And I speak to families now, bereaved people, who have suffered a loss, and they say, actually, what's been as painful for me is I've lost friends as well, because they haven't shown up for me.
Yeah.
And it's a great shame, because I speak to the other side, the one said, well, what are you meant to say?
And that's okay to say, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Say it to that person in that moment, because that's better than saying nothing.
But I keep saying this though as well, it's about showing simple acts of intent.
Yeah.
So if you literally can't say anything, just show up with a bowl of lasagna at the front door, text the person to say, hi, I'm so sorry about what's happening. I'm not sure what to say to you. At your front door, I've left you a lasagna or a cake.
But that's a good life lesson, not just for death, isn't
100%.
it? That's a massive thing where we've talked about this previously, about losing it, you know, as a community, a responsibility. You know, in my world of social work, everyone says it takes a community to raise a child. Yeah. And, you know, I kind of feel like, are we losing that? Is it going?
So
community?
A previous episode with Gary Ward, Vicar at Claverley, we talk about simple acts of kindness, and that's how we can change the world. So even just having relationships with your neighbours, mowing someone's lawn, if they're away,
kindness.
It doesn't need much.
No.
But unfortunately, a lot of people just overlook it.
Yeah, and that interaction then with your neighbour, I often think might be the only interaction that person has had, that human contact, conversation all day. Yeah. So then that brings me to my next question, sense of duty. Okay, we can see you with your mom and what happened, and then obviously your family business. We'll come back to the bit in between that in a minute. But this sense of duty that runs through you, the very you that I know, where do you think that came from, that absolute focus, clarity and sense of duty?
It's interesting. I do feel like a big part of my inside is like service before self. Yeah. And I just think there's a responsibility, which I think we should all have. We should all, I want my children to see that you should always put other people, you should always think about other people. Yeah. It's not always about putting people first. You need to make sure you're, as individuals, we're strong people, and that our core is in the most positive place possible to move forwards. But then it's about how we help other people, make society better. I feel like I have a responsibility, and I feel I'm capable of making a positive contribution to society. If I feel like I can do that, then let's do it. So, and actually I see the results. I see how people can live better lives, and it comes in different forms, really. I got a phone call yesterday from one of my students to say she passed her exam from her diploma course, and to see her evolve and grow, it gives me such pleasure as well. So, possibly is it selfish as well that I get pleasure from seeing people do well? It gives me satisfaction. So, but for me, it's deep rooted. And I think back to my childhood, I remember seeing people on the promenade at Llandudno, looking at my mum in her wheelchair, and I used to get so angry. I said, just leave her alone, stop looking. And I think I have like something inside me, almost like an element of protection for people that need help. Yeah. So I think, different forms really, but I think it comes from that. And there's an experience what are you doing to me, Kirstie?
I'm sorry.
What are you doing to me? There's an experience I had, which I've forgotten about it for about 20 years. And I was at home with my cousin, and we were like playing Lego. I think it was about 8 or 9. And my mum shouted me through to where she was. And I went through, and she was on the loo, bless her. And because she was so poorly, she couldn't get off the loo. And she said, you have to help me, son. You have to help me. I said, yeah, of course I will. But I couldn't lift her up. I was too weak to lift her up. I was like, Mum, what are we going to do? And she said, well, do you want to ask your cousin to come and give us a hand? I was like, I don't want to ask him. I don't want him to see like this.
Yeah.
But in the end, I had to.
Yeah.
I remember watching him like lift her off the toilet. I remember thinking, when I'm older, I'll never ever be in this position ever again.
Yeah.
I will be able to like move mountains.
Yeah.
I'll be unstoppable. I'll have no limitation to what I can achieve. So I will never be in this position again.
And as a mother, can you imagine how vulnerable and sad she felt? Then I've got no choice but to call for my son.
I know.
In that moment, but also quite a special moment that you were there for her, even though, you know, it didn't quite work out and you had to call for extra help.
I know.
How wonderful that you came and helped her.
Yeah, well, she knew that I would do anything for her.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, really quite special. So let's go back to the bit in between. So we've got young John, and then we've got John in the funeral industry. The chunk in between, I know, but do you want to talk a little bit about why you took that gap and didn't go straight into the family business? What happened there?
So I left school at 16, came into the funeral service, and I just felt I was too young to be around it, really. I just wanted, and I had like an itch inside me. I wanted to go and see big things. I wanted to, and I think I've always wanted to become the best version of myself, even like at a very young age. I wanted to always be better and stronger.
So very self-aware.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. So I joined the military at 18, and again, it was
Can we rewind? I joined the senior service, Royal
Navy. Royal Navy. I went to the careers office to join either the Marines or Royal Navy, and later in life I found out if you ask that question, you're Royal Navy. You're going, if you're being a Marine, you're a Marine. So I joined the Royal Navy, and I had a fascinating time. It wasn't all joy, and that's life again. But you're exposed to the reality of the world. But
I found being in the Royal Navy, sometimes the worst times are the best times, because it's the banter, the camaraderie, the sitting waiting on dockside to go on the ship. You know, that's when you really form friendships.
And hard work.
And
when you're tired. I think the best things you achieve, and like for anybody who watches this, I was ask the question to yourself: some of the most joyous moments of your life are when you've been like working at the hardest, and like you're tired, but you still drive on, you still fight through. And I think that's what the military does to you. You find out what you're made of. You find out your true colours.
Backs against the wall, how much more can you give? And you are tested. But then that true sense of duty is a thread that's sort of been with you your whole life to now, isn't it? I think, and even the military, it was, it was, like I mentioned, I found out what I'm made of, and I was always prepared to put myself out. I was always prepared to go the extra mile. I was always wanting to push myself further. So then you made a decision, I'm going to leave the Navy and I'm going to go to the family business. What was that like, that transition from to civilian life for you? Some find it hard, some are ready, what was it like for you?
I think for me, leaving the military and going straight into Perry and Phillips, I was 100 miles per hour, because that's what I've always been like to an extent. But because I had basically a sort of open canvas, really, a clean canvas to sort of direct which way it goes as well, I was able to put my energy into certain areas. So like my qualifications, my diplomas, then to become a qualified teacher to actually deliver the courses. So it was just, again, limitless. So I think I was okay because I wasn't put into like a box and said like, that's your job now. I was able to just look at this whole landscape and go, right.
New challenge.
And I could decide exactly what I wanted to do and which direction I wanted the business to go forward in. So I was very fortunate really to have that position.
So I'm not going to say anything negative about your industry, but you must have seen ways that how you've improved it. Because talking to Mandy, and she was very open yesterday, how you helped her through everything, and she she felt real ownership of the day for
Yeah.
her son. Is that must be quite a new visionary sort of way of being a funeral director? Or
I think things have changed in the funeral industry. Personalisation, there's more personalisation now. So my granddad, it would be a case of, you know, this is when the funeral service would take place. The coffin was made, so there was like a standard practice, which was obviously, it worked for society. Society has changed, the funeral industry has changed, and people's demands have risen, and the service has obviously altered accordingly. But again, for me, it's about empowering people, and I think it's what I believe in, actually. When we can empower people and give people like liberation in all walks, whatever they're doing, I like to see people like find their true selves
and an ownership.
Yeah. And I think in death, and this whole podcast is like from grief to growth. And I think that's my whole mission statement in myself is actually, I believe in the most darkest times, you can still turn it around, you can still flip it over and turn it into a positive. Not straight away, but people need the tools in knowing how to do that. I get such pleasure in being able to facilitate people and to give people confidence in knowing how to do it and seeing their growth.
So something really
stunning.
interesting that you've just said there about how you support. You're a mentor, a teacher, father, friend. Who supports John? What do you do on a bad day, for instance? We all get them. So you're all singing and dancing and you're doing it and you're changing the world and education and you're really making a change. What happens when John has a bad day? What do you do? What's your reset and who's around you at that point?
If I have a bad day or if I've got a challenge, I think it's about just fighting through. I think I'd go for like a 35, 40-minute run, do some rowing, and you got to just fight on. You know, the reality is there's no one coming to help us. So we have to help ourselves. So for me, it's like the start of COVID. I remember it felt like a war was about to happen. And my response to that is get in the office late at night, whiteboards all around me, sheets of paper all around me. How are we going to do this? How are we going to survive? So I think it's like fight or flight. And I'm not prepared to sort of
go down
sink.
without a fight.
So I'll literally just fight through. And for me, there's no other option. Hey guys, thank you for watching the video so far. I hope you're really enjoying it. Please click the thumbs up on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, a huge thank you to our sponsors. Their details are found in the video description just below. Thank you so much.
That's interesting to talk about COVID and how it changed, because we did that service when I was mayor, and you cannot really underestimate the impact that had, that moment coming out of COVID and having that service for families. And I didn't even realise how much I would be emotionally moved by it, by seeing the names, people I knew, my friend that I went to school with, that I had a video link to the service, and it was what it was, and we had to do it that way. But you can't be actually going through that process of grief and actually coming together. We couldn't cry together, we just had to watch the funeral service. So that's really important as well, that, you know, the whole grief process, you often talk about that. We talked yesterday about celebration, honouring, funeral, whatever the family feel comfortable, the terminology. That is such a pivotal, important moment for loss.
Being together,
funeral.
Community and connection, being together. It's like even with marriage, like having it in the church, like traditionally, the community would come together to see these two people coming together, and that's what I'm, you know, nationally, what I have concerns about is society's willingness to create connection. And are we moving into this like Amazon culture of just quick ease? I don't want to do difficult things. And I believe that contributes to why there's a rise in mental health issues in the United Kingdom. And I've got no proof and evidence for that. But it's my belief that a lot of people don't want to do difficult tasks and challenges. But unfortunately, by doing difficult tasks and challenges, that's how we see results. That's how we find fulfillment.
But that's not always easy for everyone. Do you think you need to be a strong person, or with the right mindset, or with the right people, or?
So there's, for me personally, the environment we're in we all have choices, which can sound really cutting and cold. And some people will argue blue in the face of me, well, it's easy for you, John, like your environment. Well, actually,
no, it's not been easy.
No, it hasn't. Life isn't easy for anybody.
No.
But what I keep coming back to is we all have choices who we invest our time with. And it might be if you have a family member who you can't avoid seeing, what I always say to people is like, just limit your time with these people. If they're toxic on you and they're not good for your mindset, then spend less time with them. Is
that what you've come back to earlier and said about control, ownership?
Yeah.
Own this situation, take control of it. What can I do?
I think one of my weaknesses is victims. I do have a problem. Like when something can define us, it's like we have a choice still. And and that sounds really harsh, but actually I still believe in the most difficult challenge, we can still turn it around. We can still, not initially, but you know, with the right environment, with the grit and determination, you can push on. You can flip it over. And some people will say that's wrong, but you have to work for it. You have to look for it as well. And like for me, I've always spent time. I've gone to every so often I'll go and see certain people or spend time with people that are good. Dan, who's doing the podcast, you know, we spend time together, and afterwards we're like buzzing, being around each other. I'm like, well, do I want to be around that? Of course I do. So,
well, they say that, don't they? Your environment, the people you're with and work can massively impact your mental health and how you respond to situations. And I know when I have tough times, who I pick up the phone to, and often I'll pop in to see you and your sister, because I know it's like-minded and it's not, oh, they're there. It's going to be not a crack on us in a bad way, but it's take ownership of your life, your situation, what you're doing.
But it's also like, you know, it's okay as well to have some bad days. Yeah, I'm not saying that life's always like I'm always fighting on and off and doing runs. That's not the case. I have challenges, but sometimes, like I say about grief, sometimes you need to accept that things are just bad, and that's okay. Yeah. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay if your husband or wife has just died and you want to have a day in bed, then do it. If you need to cry, cry. Yeah. Because doing these things will then enable you to move forward. If you resort to just drinking every night because you think that's going to help you get through it, all you're just doing is just numbing the pain, and you won't actually move forward.
You have to have the grief journey, whatever that might look like for that individual, and that's not easy at that time of intense pain and physical pain. We were talking about that yesterday as well, that actual, you're sat in a physical pain is something quite difficult, and then in you come with a voice of calmness, and you must have worked with extraordinary situations of all ages, and no two situations probably are the same then, thinking about it.
No, they're not, but what I have seen is like initially, especially around young people, and again I've seen like Mark Irvine, he's a wonderful example. So he's been on this podcast, we've got an episode with him. When Donna died, his wife died, initially he was quite reluctant for me to meet his children, because I said to him, would they like to meet me, just so they know who's looking after things. And he was like, I don't know really, John, about that. And I said, that's fine. And I respect that 100%. But then he thought actually it might be useful. And then actually they got more and more involved, and then he saw how it helped them. Involving them actually helped him. They were all together, they were tight together, and then that's how we achieve anything in life, by doing things together.
And there's no difficult questions because they probably had the answers or the ability to have that open conversation with Dad. It made it easier for them.
For all of us in life, the things that cause us the most anxiety or fear is the unknown. So the fact that when they meet me, they can ask me these questions. Oh, okay. Well, that's straightforward. So just remove the unknowns.
But that was so apparent when we went into school and did that work that day.
Oh, well, that was it.
And we had to sort of tailor-make how we were presenting the loss of a member of staff, not only to the staff but to the students, but do it in an age-appropriate way. And you could really see, with parents' consent, they were there, but the different levels of understanding or conversations they potentially had at home. That was
an incredible day. I couldn't talk in the evening. I was like emotionally spent, but it was so important. And for us to go and do that, that was a difficult challenge. That was an important challenge, but it was one that was needed. And it would be easy not to do it. but actually we have a responsibility, I think, to go and do it. And the outcome of that, the amount of parents who've got in touch to say it was so helpful for their children, for us to go and talk to the whole school at different levels.
And interestingly, members of staff and teachers got in touch with me and said, that was brilliant, John was brilliant. It's probably what we all needed, just that stop, pause, reflect. And you're so worried and consumed about the children. They hadn't thought about how not seeing that person at school anymore, or was difficult.
I remember when we got to the front to talk about the teacher dying at the school, and some of the teachers around the room, and I could feel they were apprehensive about what we were going to say. Yeah. So that added more pressure onto the actual sessions as well. But a lot of the questions the children asked us, I think that a lot of adults.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But we're sort of like in society, you don't ask those questions. Yeah. But the questions.
But I also felt very encouraged that when one of the young girls did break down and cry, who was incredibly close to that member of staff, her peers came and put their arms around her and said, "It's okay, this is all right." And it was so natural. Yeah. None of us had to intervene and go, "Are you okay?" Her friends immediately saw she was struggling and did it, and I just felt there was some comfort in that as well.
So I don't know how anybody could argue that what we did
was right or wrong.
Well, no, I don't. I'd see. My view is, how can that cause? There's no way that isn't a result to move forward. Yeah. That's how we heal. Yeah. By having those conversations.
Yeah. And we empowered those children and young people that day because they kind of knew what was happening. They were part of the service, weren't they? When you went past that day, they knew who it was going to be you. They recognised you. We even took the hat in for the props, what Hearst was. Yeah. You have to think that some of them have no knowledge and some have a little, and I think that was quite a special day actually.
Yeah, it was a special day.
It took me aback actually how knowing the family, knowing that person as well. It was really
she's a friend
personal.
Of yours. Yeah, a friend of yours.
Very personal. Yeah. And I think she would have been exceptionally pleased because she would have worried about the children and how her first thought, she was so caring, was the children in her care and how they were going to get through it. I would know that, and her family, and it was really nice that we were able to say Nan was involved and ease their concerns actually. Yeah,
well done
they're
to you.
Okay.
Well done to you for being there because again you were so close to it all. Yeah. That was a big thing for you to do.
It was, but also very, and we've talked about this quite strangely, quite important that I was part of that as well because I could relate to them because I knew her. Yeah. It wasn't somebody, an outsider coming in and talking about this person. I knew her. I knew her.
Community and connection again.
Yeah, and that's the way it's going to be, isn't it? So how we talked about what success will look like. So you'll get this onto the national curriculum, you keep doing your podcasts, you're raising awareness, you're driving the visionary sort of way with your industry. What's left for you to achieve? What direction do you see yourself going in? Now, I see you as I've always talked about this, a natural politician. If we could touch on that a little bit, would that be something you'd be interested in? Leading in a different way?
It's an interesting one. I don't really talk about it, but I'll say it today. But like Philip Dunn spoke to me about becoming standing for MP, and as well as you have. But I don't know where I fit in. To be honest with you, I don't know where I fit into politics. I want to make an impact on society, and I do feel like I'm already doing that. Yeah. So the question is, I don't know. I think at the moment, as long as a positive impact is being made, I'm comfortable with that. But I suppose it's where
is it more training?
Going that in the industry? Yeah, I think my mission statement is about how we make an impact on society, and I've been sort of looking at the different things I do, the titles that I've got, and I think it ties into end of life provider and educator. So for education, through campaigning, and interestingly, I've been asked by the Australian Funeral Association to speak at their conference next year. Wow. So they're having their conference.
You're going global, John.
Well, and last week I put it down on paper because they said, I'm talking. They want to do the same initiative over there as we've done here, and I have told them it's not quite complete yet. But the CEO Dale, he said, well, it's pretty much done. It's in the RSC guidance notes. The debate was all booked. That's going to be rebooked soon. So yeah. people in Canada got in touch with me, and the States as well. So it's kind of like, is this where this is heading?
Yeah.
So,
and you never did it for that, and I've been with you, and I put you forward for awards, and you've won awards, and you're very humble. And I always remember going to the Veteran Awards, Veteran UK Awards with you. I got a gold, by the way, and you've got a bronze, but hey, that's military humour in this. But I also remember your feeling of, wow, look at these people in this room. You were still at that point humble.
Well,
how do you remain humble when you're now being recognised globally, internationally, by your industry, by education?
I don't really see it as that. It's like, how do we define success?
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't really, it's not about that. For me,
it's never been about that.
No, I think for me, it sounds quite deep and heavy, but how I live my life is, I'm not, because I'm so self-aware, I'm fully aware that we're not going to be here forever.
Yes.
I'm already aware that at some point I'll be drawing my last breath. And again, some people think I'm morbid for like my views, but I'm the opposite. I think I'm truly living
life to the
100%.
Yeah.
So like, if I was living my life to try and get an award, I don't know. I'm more interested in how I'm going to be feeling when it's my last moments, and how I've made an impact on society to try and
you look back and go. And it's about the legacy you leave, whether that's in that role. I often think that about my times, within politics or when I was working in schools. It's the legacy you leave and the difference you've made.
Just to try and leave things better than you find them, and it's like in every aspect. So when I first started it, and like in Bridge North initially, it's like, well, how can you affect your environment? And the question is, how big does the environment go? I don't know the answer to that. So obviously I've been invited to go and speak in Vietnam at the Australian Funeral Association. I haven't gone out to do that. But now it's like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Where's this heading now?
And I think you're so comfortable with death.
100%.
You're talking about it, you're so comfortable in it,
100%.
you know it's going to happen to you, and you're a great one for quotes and memes, and I know we share some really inspirational stuff. But I'm really interested in the quote that you live your life by every day, that you kind of have in your office, and you are inspired still by other people and other things, so that can only grow, surely.
100%. I think like doing this podcast, meeting people, learning about people, I'm very intrigued by people.
Like a sponge.
Yeah, I love. No one's got the answer to everything, and I think, people have got challenges every day. It's how they deal with the challenges, and I love working with people. I think that's something that really excites me. Collaboration with charities, different partners, different groups, and like together you can.
How far can this go? This could go. The work you're doing, because it's massive with suicide and veterans charities, and there's so much work you could get involved with.
Yeah.
It doesn't just stop there, does it?
It's massive. I don't want to have any limitation really, and at the core of it all is my family.
I was just about to ask you about that family time and your children, and are you very good at switching off and focusing and go, this is my time for my family, or?
Yeah, so when I'm not at work with my family,
Yeah.
I don't really have a social life, and that's my choice.
No, you're not telling the truth there, because you do play five-a-side football.
That's obsessive behaviour as well, to want to win.
I was about to say that, and you do sometimes
That's not fun.
broadcast your wins.
That's not fun.
It's a switch off, a release from it all, banter and fun.
It is good. It's a different environment.
Yeah.
But again, though, it's an environment I still want to win in. But no, and I think people, they say to me all the time, how does your wife deal with you doing the things you do, John? I was like, well, my wife is, as Adele, she knows why I do it.
Yeah,
and then
she's great support.
She is great, she's fantastic support, but it's really important that, she knows if I'm not trying to make a positive impact somewhere, I'm with my kids and her, and that's my core.
Yeah.
If that's not right, then everything else isn't right.
Yeah.
So.
And what's your aspirations for your lovely children? What would you like to
my
see
kids
for them?
to be content,
Yeah.
Content, strong and resilient people, and kind people, and to find relationships in their lives that treat them with kindness, and they treat them with kindness. Everything has to work two-way. So that's, I've been writing a book for them actually for 8 years.
Wow.
That is like a journal that I write into, and I put my thoughts in there about, and like their foundation of like who they are and like their family. So if anything was ever to happen to me, they've got it. They've got it, yeah. They know exactly what's around them. And
well, I try and do that with old-fashioned photographs for my boys still.
Yeah.
Because I know everything's digital, but I try and do it so they've got lots of photographs of their lives.
Yeah.
Even to now, they're like, Mum, do you still print photographs? And I'm like, so maybe I don't write words, but yeah, I can understand why you do that.
Yeah, yeah. But in there, I put in there
important.
about, you know, with your partners, try and eventually, like, looks will wear away and, you know, things change, but actually kindness,
Yeah.
the core of it all, really. But don't also mistake kindness for stupidity or weakness. You know, you've got to be strong as well. So it's a blend.
So, question for you: have you planned your funeral?
Do
you know what you would want? I know that changes.
I've got ideas. I've got ideas for it.
That's a military thing, isn't it? It's one of the first things we have to do when we join up. Is go and plan your funeral. Like, oh, hang on a minute, you know, go see the chaplain and get it all signed off.
Yeah, yeah. So, but a dream for me would be, I say dream.
Yeah, but you know,
here we go. I would love to have like a home burial. So if I had a big, you know, spacious lands, to have like a home burial there, that'd be really, really cool.
A party.
Yeah, party. Obviously. But just again, and actually for me, it's about the people I leave behind, my close people who are there, the relationships around. I think COVID-19 proved that it's not about the posh coffin. No. It's about the relationships that we leave.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And actually, my kids, when they say goodbye to me, they're strong, resilient people. Well, they know we're going to miss Dad. Yeah. But we'll be okay.
But weren't we lucky to have him?
Yeah, yeah. And actually, let's crack on now.
There's strength in that.
Let's push on.
And I'm going to end with a really personal question.
Okay.
And I don't want to upset you, but I'm going to get upset just even asking you. If your mum was sat here now, what's one thing you'd tell her?
Oh, wow. What would I tell her? Oh, wow. I think it would be, what I'd tell her. It'd probably be, I told you it would be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I said to her when just before she died. So.
And you were right.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got me going. Oh, bless you. Thank you. Oh.
Thanks, Kirstie. Thanks so much.